Okay, so let me tell you about something that happened to me a couple of years ago. I was 19 at the time. It was the fall of 2021, and I still can't think about it without getting chills. At that point, I was in my second year of college, just trying to make some extra money. I had a regular babysitting gig during the week, but on weekends I worked as a live-in nanny for this insanely rich family. I'm talking they have a heated driveway rich. Their house was out in this fancy neighborhood called Pine Hollow. About 40 minutes outside of town. Big trees, winding roads, deer crossing signs every 2 feet. Super quiet. Too quiet, honestly. The family was the Whitmores. Mr. and Mrs. Whitmore were always flying off somewhere. Napa Valley, Aspen, wherever rich people go. They had 2 kids, Lily, who was 6, and Max, who was 9. Both were sweet and polite. Way better behaved than I ever was at their age. Whenever the parents left for the weekend, I'd stay at their house from Friday evening to Sunday night. They had a full guest suite just for me, like a hotel room tucked into the far side of the house. It even had its own little kitchenette and fireplace. Not bad, right? The backyard was straight out of a movie. There was a pond with ducks, a stone path that led to a separate pool house, which honestly felt more like a mini mansion, and tall trees all around. You couldn't see any neighbors. It felt like the house was out there all by itself, surrounded by woods and silence. Anyway, it was a chilly Friday evening in late October, and I had just arrived. The parents were already gone and the kids were finishing dinner when I got there. We played some board games, watched a Disney movie, and then I got them both into bed. Lily by 7:30, Max by 8:30. By the time I had the house to myself, it was around 9:15. I grabbed a microwave burrito, popped it in, and then made my way across the yard to the pool house. That was my favorite place to hang out. It had a huge couch, an even bigger TV, a little arcade section, and these massive windows that overlooked the pond and the main house. It was cozy, quiet, and best of all, I didn't have to worry about waking anyone up. So there I was, burrito in hand, watching some dumb reality show on Netflix and texting my friend Tara about how easy this job was. I was sprawled out, living the dream, when the intercom on the wall buzzed. Now this thing was an old-school speaker with a button. There was one in the pool house and one in the kitchen of the main house. It was mainly there in case the kids needed to reach me, but hearing it buzz out of nowhere, it made me jump. I hit the button and said, "Hello?" A small voice crackled through. I hear something." It was Lily. I asked her what she heard and she whispered, "Noises in the walls, scratching." My stomach sank a little. I told her to hang tight and that I'd be right over. I put down my burrito and jogged back across the yard, breathing in cold night air that suddenly felt way too still. When I got inside, the house was quiet. Too quiet. I went to Lily's room and she was already back under the covers, eyes wide like she hadn't blinked in a while. I sat with her for a few minutes, smoothed her hair, told her it was probably the house settling. Old houses make weird noises sometimes, right? She nodded slowly but didn't say anything. I stayed until she relaxed, then kissed her on the forehead, and quietly left the room. As I walked down the hallway toward the kitchen, I decided I could probably use a glass of wine to take the edge off. I opened the drawer to find a corkscrew when I heard something that made every hair on my body stand up. A soft, creaky step. Somewhere behind me, I froze. The kind of frozen where you can hear your own heartbeat thudding in your ears. I turned my head slowly, scanning the dim hallway behind me. Nothing. I tried to shake it off. Probably just the floorboards, I told myself. Maybe Max got up to use the bathroom or something. But I knew deep down that wasn't it. Still, I walked out, locked the door behind me, and hurried back to the pool house. I turned on every light and turned the TV up louder than before, trying to drown out the weird feeling settling in my chest. Then, just as I was starting to relax again, the intercom buzzed. I nearly threw my phone. I walked over, heart pounding, and hit the button. "Hello?" Nothing. I waited, trying to hear any little sound. I thought I heard breathing. Just barely. "Lily?" "Max," I asked. "Is everything okay?" Still nothing. That's when the fear really kicked in. I called Tara and told her what was going on. How Lily said she heard scratching, then I heard footsteps, and now the intercom thing was going off but no one was talking. Tara tried to joke about it, said I was probably just freaking myself out watching too many horror movies, but even she didn't sound too sure. I was staring out the pool house window looking at the main house when it happened. The hallway lights inside the house turned on. Then, just like a horror movie, a figure stepped into view. It was a man, tall, thin, pale. He stood there, just inside the hallway, and looked directly at me. Not around, not down. Right at me. I couldn't move. I couldn't even scream. He was inside. With the kids? I dropped my phone, scrambled to pick it up, and dialed 911. I was crying, trying to talk and sob at the same time. I told the operator that someone was in the house with the kids. I shouted the address. I begged for help. I must have said, "Please hurry," at least 20 times. Then I heard it. Lily's scream. It came through the intercom, loud and sharp. I broke down. I couldn't even think. I dropped to my knees, sobbing into the phone. The operator kept telling me to stay calm, but I couldn't. All I could think was, he's got the kids. He's in there. He's in there. Then I heard Lily's voice again. "Kayla?" she said, barely holding back tears. "Yes, I'm here," I shouted into the speaker. "Grab Max and come outside right now. Run," she was crying. There's a man in the house." "I know, baby, just go. Grab Max and go." I have no idea how I found the strength, but I ran, full sprint across that dark yard, heart pounding so hard it hurt. And just as I reached the door, there they were, Lily and Max, huddled together, barefoot in pajamas, terrified. I scooped them both up and ran back to the pool house, locked the door, shut off every light, and pulled them down behind the couch with me. We stayed there in the dark, all of us shaking, trying to stay quiet. I whispered to them, "It's gonna be okay. The police are coming." It felt like forever, but finally the operator told me the police were on the property. I saw flashlights moving outside the windows. I led the kids to the door and opened it to find 2 officers standing there. They rushed the kids to one car, and another officer stayed with me, asking what happened, what I saw, where the man went. And then, about 10 minutes later, they found him. He had been hiding in the basement the whole time. They brought him out in handcuffs. He looked wrong, like his face didn't line up right. His eyes didn't blink at the same time. His clothes were filthy, torn like he'd been living in the walls. I'm not kidding. The police said they found a section of the crawl space where someone had clearly been sleeping. Candy wrappers, a flashlight, even some of Max's missing toys. Turns out he had been living inside the house for at least a couple of days. The Whitmores were called and rushed home that night. None of us slept. Lily and Max were taken to their aunt's house, and I went home too, though I didn't get a wink of sleep for days. I later found out that the guy had escaped from a nearby mental facility. He had walked all the way to Pine Hollow and picked the biggest, loneliest-looking house to hide in. The Whitmores beefed up their security big time after that. Cameras, alarms, the works. But me, I couldn't go back. That house still shows up in my nightmares. Sometimes I wonder if the intercom hadn't worked, if Lily hadn't been brave enough to call me, if I hadn't looked out that window at just the right time. I don't even want to finish that thought. All I know is we were lucky. And sometimes when the wind is just right and the house creaks a little too loud, I still hear that buzzer in my dreams. Buzz. So back in 2014, I went on a camping trip with my younger cousin, Josh. I was 24 at the time and Josh was 17. It wasn't anything too crazy, just a weekend trip out to Larkspur Pines, a quiet forest area about an hour from where we lived. We figured we'd fish, hang out, maybe roast marshmallows. You know, the usual. We brought my old dog Duke, a golden retriever who was about as chill as dogs come. Super friendly, great in the woods, always stayed close. The kind of dog you didn't have to worry about wandering off. It was mid-October, so the days were crisp but not freezing yet. At night, though, it got cold enough that you'd want a fire and a warm sleeping bag. We packed light but smart. A tent, 2 sleeping bags, a cooler with enough food for a couple days, a small portable fire pit, an axe, fishing poles, flashlights, and a little camp stove. We even brought a deck of cards and some horror comics to read around the fire. Josh had never really been camping before, so he was excited. maybe a little too excited. I kept telling him it wasn't going to be like a horror movie or anything. I kind of wish I hadn't said that. We parked the truck at the ranger-designated lot and hiked in about a mile to find a good spot near the lake. It was a beautiful area. Tall pines, soft forest floor, the lake just peeking through the trees. We set up camp in a clearing just big enough for the tent and fire pit, with the lake maybe 50 yards away down a gentle slope. That first day went smooth. We set up, did a bit of fishing, didn't catch much but didn't really care. Duke chased a few squirrels but never strayed far. Everything felt normal, peaceful. But then, right around sunset, things started feeling off. We were walking back up from the lake and Duke just stopped. Completely froze. Ears perked, tail stiff. He stared into the woods to our right like he saw something. I figured maybe a deer or raccoon. But the way he stood there, no barking, no growling, just intense, locked on focus, gave me chills. Probably just a critter, I told Josh. But Duke wouldn't move until I tugged on his collar. We got back to camp, got the fire going, made some dinner and tried to shake it off. Josh brought it up again later though. Hey, he said, you don't think it was like someone watching us, do you? I laughed and told him not to let his imagination get ahead of him. But I'll admit, I had that crawling feeling too. Like we were being looked at. You know that feeling when someone's staring at you from across the room? It was like that, but from the trees. That night we sat around the fire for a bit, telling dumb stories and playing cards. Duke kept glancing into the forest. Not barking, just watching. Then sometime around 10 p.m., he got up and walked toward the edge of the light. Duke? I called. He didn't come back right away. Josh got up and aimed his flashlight toward where Duke was. The beam caught him standing perfectly still, staring at something just beyond the trees. What's he looking at? Josh asked. I stepped over and whistled for Duke. That's when we both heard it, a weird sound coming from deeper in the woods. Not an animal, not footsteps. It was whistling, like someone trying to get a dog's attention. Long, slow whistles, the kind a person makes with their lips and not a bird, not the wind. A person. We froze. The hair on my arm stood up. Duke didn't bark. He just stayed still, ears back. Josh whispered, "Dude, what the hell is that?" "I don't know," I said. "Let's get inside the tent." We called Duke over, and thankfully he came, then put out the fire and zipped ourselves into the tent. We left our boots just inside and kept the flashlight nearby. I still didn't think it was anything serious, but my gut was starting to twist. Josh whispered, "Why would someone be out here at night whistling at our dog?" No answer. I didn't know either. Inside the tent, things got quiet. Too quiet. No bugs, no breeze. Just that heavy, unnatural silence you sometimes get in the woods when something's not right. A little later, Duke started growling. Low, quiet, almost like he was trying not to make noise but couldn't help it. He stared at the tent wall near the zipper. I sat up slowly, heart pounding. Josh didn't say anything, just watched. Then we heard it again, whistling, right outside, long and slow, like before, but closer now. Then it stopped. Josh was shaking. Do we say something?" I said, loud enough for whoever it was to hear. "We've got a dog and a gun. Leave now." I didn't have a gun. There was a pause, long enough to make me think maybe it worked. But then we heard something worse. A clicking sound, like someone making a ch-ch-ch noise with their tongue, right up against the tent. I swear I could hear breathing, close, like someone was standing just inches from the fabric. Duke exploded. Barking, snarling, he charged the front of the tent, clawing at the zipper. I grabbed him, held him back, trying not to scream. We heard footsteps, slow, heavy, walking away. Or maybe circling. I couldn't tell. We didn't sleep the rest of the night. Josh kept the flashlight on and aimed it at the zipper. I held Duke and listened. For hours. Every little sound made us jump. Snapping twigs, rustling leaves, the wind brushing the tent. At some point, at probably around 3 or 4 a.m., we both must have dozed off for a little while. We were exhausted. Then we heard the scream. It came from deep in the woods. A woman's voice, screaming like she was being attacked, raw, high-pitched, panicked. Josh sat straight up, eyes wide. Duke growled again, low and long. There was no way we were going out there. I grabbed my boots, yanked them on, and told Josh, "We're leaving. Right now. No, man, it's still dark. I don't care. We're leaving." We packed what we could in under 5 minutes, grabbed the essentials, and booked it. I kept the flashlight out front, and Duke stayed glued to my side the whole way back to the truck. The whole time I kept feeling like we were being followed. I didn't look back. We made it to the truck, tossed our stuff in the back, and took off down that dirt road. I didn't stop until we were back on the highway. No cell signal the entire time. When we finally got reception, I called the non-emergency line for the local sheriff's office and told them about the scream. The weird noises. The person outside our tent. They took my report, said they'd send someone out. I never heard anything back. We didn't go back for the rest of our gear. I left it, the tent, the cooler, the stove, all of it. I wasn't going back in those woods. Not even in daylight. To this day, I don't know who or what was out there, but I haven't gone camping since, and I don't think I ever will. So this happened just last fall, and I still think about it all the time. I was 16, staying alone for the weekend at my cousin's place. Her name's Lydia, and she and her parents live in this weirdly structured house way out in the middle of nowhere. Like Deep Woods, Pennsylvania. Their house is kind of a split level, but the top floor is set up almost like a mini apartment. Lydia and I usually stayed up there when I visited. It had a bedroom, a little living area, and a kitchenette. It was cozy and old, kind of smelled like cedar wood and dust. That weekend, Lydia was out on some school trip, and her parents had driven down to Maryland for a family thing. I didn't want to go, and they trusted me enough to hold the fort. I figured, great. Weekend alone, horror movie marathon, junk food, no one telling me to turn down the volume. Perfect. The first night, it rained non-stop. Like slamming against the windows kind of rain. So I decided to go full spooky mode. I put on the Babysitter, made some popcorn, and curled up in a blanket cocoon on the couch. You know how certain movies just mess with your head? That one always gets me. Around halfway through, I paused the movie to get a snack. The kitchenette was just across the room, barely 6 steps away. I grabbed a box of Lydia's chocolate granola bars from the pantry. That's when I heard something weird. It sounded like a thump, just one, downstairs. It was muffled, and I couldn't tell exactly what it was. At first, I figured it was just the house settling. Old places creak and groan all the time, right? Still, it put a little chill up my spine. I laughed to myself. Classic horror movie timing, and went back to the couch. Pressed play. But then I noticed the backyard motion light was on. Now listen, this place is surrounded by trees. The backyard just sort of fades into thick woods. When the light goes on out there, it's noticeable because it glows right up through the windows. I looked out and saw nothing. Just the trees swaying in the wind. No animals. No person. I tried to ignore it and focus on the movie, but something started nagging at me. You ever get that itch in the back of your brain that something's just off? That's what it felt like. Then I heard another sound. This time it was clearer, like a door closing, and not a soft click, a heavy, solid door closing with a soft thud. From downstairs, I paused the movie again, muted the TV. My stomach dropped, because now I was hearing footsteps. At first I thought, okay, maybe Lydia came home early. Maybe her trip got canceled. But she'd text me if that was the case, right? I grabbed my phone and texted our family group chat. Hey, is anyone back early? A minute later, her mom replied, nope, still in Maryland. Everything okay? I stared at the message. My hands went cold. The footsteps kept going, slow and steady across the lower floor. And then they stopped. For a moment it was dead silent except for the rain tapping the windows. Then the footsteps started again. But this time, they were coming up the stairs. I turned off the TV completely and stood there frozen. I don't know how to describe it, but it felt like my brain just shut down. My ears were tuned in like a dog's. I could hear each creak of the steps. There were 4 doors in the upstairs hallway. Mine was at the end. The footsteps didn't pause at any of the other doors. They were coming straight for mine. I backed into bed, heart hammering so loud I thought whoever was out there could hear it. I pulled the blankets up and laid down. pretending to be asleep. I kept one eye barely open, just enough to see shapes in the dark. The door handle turned slowly. Click. And then, the door creaked open. My heart stopped. There was a figure in the doorway. A man. His head poked through the opening, just far enough for his face to be lit by the faint glow from the TV screen behind me. I couldn't see much, but I did see his eyes. They were wide and staring. Not confused, not cautious, watching. I didn't move, didn't breathe. Just lay there faking sleep as best I could. My body felt like ice. It was one of those moments where your mind just starts praying, even if you don't believe in anything. He stood there for what felt like hours, but it was probably less than a minute. Then without a word, he gently closed the door, but I didn't hear him walk away. I waited, counting in my head, 10 seconds, 20, still nothing. With my fingers barely moving, I grabbed my phone and texted Lydia, "Please tell me you're home." "Someone's in the house," she responded instantly. "What?" "I'm not." "Call the cops." That's when I called 911. I was whispering so quietly I didn't know if the dispatcher could even hear me. As soon as I started talking, I finally heard footsteps again, moving away from the door, down the stairs. The dispatcher stayed on with me the whole time. About 5 minutes later, I saw red and blue lights flashing through the windows. Then came the knock at the front door. 2 officers came inside and swept the whole house. Every room, every corner, every closet, even the attic. They found nothing. But the back door? It was unlocked. That was probably how he got in. I didn't sleep that night. Would you? I just sat in bed with the lights on, wrapped in every blanket I could find. The cops had left and I was completely alone again. Every sound in the house made me jump. I was convinced he was still inside, hiding somewhere the police didn't look. Then around 3 a.m., the backyard motion light turned on again. This time, I didn't just see the glow. I saw him, a man, standing near the edge of the trees, not moving, just facing the house, watching. I froze. My breath caught in my throat. He took a few steps back into the shadows, disappeared into the dark. I stared out that window for what felt like hours, gripping my phone in one hand and a kitchen knife in the other. But the light didn't come on again. Eventually, morning came. But even in the daylight, the house didn't feel safe. Lydia's parents came back later that day. I didn't sleep for 2 more nights after that. I kept seeing those eyes in the doorway. That slow, deliberate way he moved. He didn't say a word, didn't steal anything. He just watched me. We later installed extra locks and cameras all around the house, but it didn't matter. The memory was already burned into me. Now I double-check every lock, every window, every time. Because it only takes one moment, one unlocked door for someone to quietly step inside your world. And once you've seen them watching you in the dark, you can never unsee it.